Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another podcast. Thank you again for tuning in. If you haven't done so yet, please leave us a review on iTunes as well as on our Flipping the Barrel website. You can leave us a review there and tell us what you think about the podcast. Today's episode, I'm super excited because we get to interview Enrico Biscaro. He is an executive corporate entrepreneur and developer of Unleash Your Full Leadership Potential. He's on a quest to eliminate bad management by influencing 1 million early leader careers through his LinkedIn posts and social media. Not to mention also that he is the Asia Pacific Drilling Service Director for Baker Hughes. So good morning to you, Enrico. I think it's 6 a.m. your time, and we're really excited to have you on today.
Oh, thank you very much, Massiel. I'm also very excited to be here. And indeed, it's 6 a.m. in Kuala Lumpur, where I live and work.
It's so amazing to see what you're doing online, Enrico, and also just to, on top of that, have your role at Baker Hughes. So we're very inspired by that.
No, thank you very much.
Yes, we would like to start out. Just could you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what was life like growing up as Enrico?
So my life was actually very nice and very easy. I am from a town called Treviso, which is in the northeast part of Italy, very close to Venice. You probably have not heard about it, but if you drink Prosecco or eat tiramisu, that's where those two things come from, both the wine and the cake. You can Google it if you don't believe me, because people usually say, no, it's impossible.
That's a good place to be from.
I love tiramisu.
It's a good place to be from, absolutely. And really, to tell about my childhood, I think I'm gonna try to show a picture. These are my parents. My wife says that I look more and more like my dad, so it's true actually. But you see the smile. This was taken a couple of years ago. They've been married 50 years now, and growing around two people like that is difficult to say that your life was hard. I lived in Treviso my entire life, and one thing that really I can say that impacted me beside my parents is what I was doing here with the Boy Scout. I think you call them Cub Scout or Eagle Scout in the United States.
Yep.
And I think, I started when I was 7 years old as a little kid, and then I continued until I was 21. And they really instilled in me the importance of service. If you look at what I do online and what I do actually in my work, because I started in my work first, it's acting in service of other. To me, this is essential for a leader. And it's in the Boy Scout that I learned that. So I had a ton of fun, in the community, going out with the kids and helping them smile and laugh, summer camp activity. So that really impacted really impacted my early years and my teenagers here as well. I was really blessed to be born where I was with the parents I had.
Awesome. So is there any oil there, or how did oil and gas come into the mix? How did you get into the industry?
So, I'm going to show you another picture because I really like this showing. I'm a very visual person, right? So I like showing stuff. And he is the reason why I enter oil and gas.
Okay. So for those who can't see, because it's a podcast, it's a skeleton of a dinosaur, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
In a museum. So fossil fuels, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Fossil fuels.
Well, fossil fuel, yes, but really, my passion, I could say, was my passion. My dream was I'm gonna go and look, and find the next unfound dinosaurs in the Gobi Desert. That was my childhood. Don't ask me why. So I failed at becoming a diplomat. Actually, I wanted to study to become a diplomat, but I failed the entry test. So I revert back to my passion and I started studying geology. After a couple of years I don't know if you know the series Friends.
Yes.
Yes.
We're not that young.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Yeah, and of course Ross was a paleontologist, and by looking at him, I decided that there was no future for me in paleontology. So I said, fossil fuel, good enough, and plus, really my goal was to travel the world. That's what I wanted to do, and I wanted, gosh, I'm sorry for my employer, but I did not want to pay for it. So I looked for a job where I could have both my passion of traveling the world, but in a way I think that the world still need energy. And when I started about 20 years ago, obviously all the discussion and bad reputation around our industry in a way was not there. And I thought that, what, the fact that we are providing safe and reliable energy, to me, was a way to impact in my little space the world. And then, of course, when I started traveling and working in places like Saudi Arabia and Saudi Arabia and Kazakhstan, where we always had very strong localization program, being able to go to university and hire young talents that might not have uh, something to look for, a bright future. I thought that our company was contributing to that as well. So I really like that aspect of my work,
Mm-hmm.
that we are impacting the community where we work.
Well, with the subject on, your Baker Hughes and working for Baker Hughes and being able to travel the world, we know that you've had 9 different roles over 15 years with Baker Hughes, climbing the ladder from a drilling engineer in Italy to now a director over the drilling services. What is one of the things that you could attribute your success to?
I have to repeat myself. It's acting in the service of other, and this is not just because I reflected lately, and really it's not just acting for your team, but you also act in the service of your customer and in the service of your supervisor or leader or manager or boss, as it's called in a familiar term. And really, if you stop worrying about your career progress, if you stop worrying about what's going to be next, and you focus on delivering consistent results, uh, then things will happen. Uh, I wouldn't say automatically, but you will be able to do what we say in Baker Hughes, that is to run your race, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very often I hear, oh, the company does not care about my career, the company does not support me, etc. And I want to really stop those comments immediately, because at the end of the day, if you deliver a result and you are vocal about what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
then people will take notice, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, we all need to create our brand. And this is especially true in these days. And it was true when I started 20 years ago. And I don't know, for some reason, maybe because, yes, a bit part of my character, which I've learned to tone down a bit, is to be very proud of what I do. I'm very passionate. I'm Italian, the usual moving your hands a lot. And so every time I achieve some result, I made sure that people notice. And so I think my advice is acting in the service of other, but don't be afraid to make your work noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And leaders like me, or even in higher position than me, they do notice. And let's say you have a team, you don't need to brag about yourself. Uh, I said it in the video that you posted to present the podcast. when you use we, you don't have to be afraid that people will not notice, because leadership does notice, because they know the importance of a good coach. Team go in the field and win the game, but the first person who gets fired if the team is not successful is the coach, right?
I totally agree with that. I think you definitely need to be, self-advocating your own career. I've always said it's your career and it's in your hands. Like, yes, the company is going to help you to get to where you want, but you have to be in the driver's seat, and you need to be taking your career wherever you want to take it. So I really like what you're saying about showcasing your results, and hey, it's okay to be proud of your work and showcasing it to others. I completely agree with that. What would you say was a pivotal moment in your career that you can remember, where it was just a very impactful year? Or can you explain if there was any challenges that you faced during that time?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because I don't know if you read the book True North, but the theory is that in every person, it doesn't have to be a leader, beside the fact that I believe that everyone is a leader, but there's a crucible. So a crucible, I had to look it up because I'm Italian, but the crucible is where you melt iron or any metal, and then it becomes something different, right? And it involves fire and pressure and heat. And so my crucible was when I worked in Israel. I worked there for a couple of years. And when I got there, basically things were not going too well, let's say. One of our competitor had just got some of the work that we have won. And basically they told me, okay, now you go there and fix it. Okay, I'm up for it. And it was a small team. It was me, two rotating coordinator, and that was pretty much it. So the days were long, 14, 16 hours every day. The family was neglected. Results to me are very, very important. And I'm a perfectionist. So I was feeling that I was failing at a certain time, at a certain point. I was feeling inadequate. I was feeling maybe I will lose my job, and I was really, really worried. And so very little sleep, no exercise, bad eating habits. I ended up a real mess. Fortunately, I immediately went for help, and things start improving. But basically, I learned that really, no matter what, you need to take care of yourself first and foremost. Because if you don't, then your health will suffer. And I think, you guys work in the same industry I do, the focus on safety.
Yep.
Yeah, it's nonstop. And the focus on safety on the rig site, in the workshop. But I think we don't talk enough about stress, anxiety, mental health. And that is important. I learned it to my expenses in a way. But I also learned that being perfect, it's not a job requirement. I know a lot of people that are perfectionists. If I read you well, you are also too very perfectionist, right?
Yes.
And my advice to anyone that is like that is, you don't have to be perfect to be above average. And that's what I learned, and that helped me throughout the rest of my career for sure.
I'm really glad that you shared that with us, because I know there's a lot of people struggling right now and probably questioning a lot of things in their career, just due to the environment. So to know that somebody at your level had felt that before is really impactful. And when you talk about stress management and just mental health. When I was first in the field, I actually ended up with shingles on my face at age 26 because of stress. And I was driving back and forth to the field for so much time. And the doctors were like, "You're too young to have shingles." But apparently when I started telling people in the oil field, like, "Oh yeah, I got shingles on my face," they're like, "Oh yeah, I've had that too." And we were all like under 30. So it's like, that's not very common. So yeah, the stress is definitely there. Oh, sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, also I want to say, if you are in a leadership position, imagine if it's always about we, but it starts with you. You need to be physically and mentally fit, because you need to support your team. So if you are not physically and mentally fit, this will reflect on your team and their results.
And I think sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves, thinking, I can't bring this up to my manager. Like, I need to, like you said, just keep performing, showing up, doing the best that you can. But like you said, I think if there's a point where you are overwhelmed, most managers would be very open to understand that and take it back and give you the help they need, right? They don't want to burn you out, but unless you don't voice up, no one knows what's going on. So I do agree. You definitely have to voice your concerns and say, I need time off, or I need a break, or I need support and I need help, right?
Look, I agree with you. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, you could not go to your manager and say that. But now I guarantee you that this is something that I can put my hand on my heart and say, you would not find a manager or a leader that would push you down. Look, if you are in a leadership position, I think, and this stemmed from my idea, my vision, that I am always accountable without boundaries. And so remember sometime to ask the question. Don't wait for people to come to you. Be proactive, be 2 steps ahead. And when your team is stressed, right? Because the level of pressure you are applying. So I'll give you an example. We are toward the end of the quarter. The team works super hard. We're gonna do great. I tell the team, it's July. Okay, here's the equator. So you need to start thinking that there's no season, but it's summer in the Western Hemisphere. And I told my team, in July, make sure that you give me your vacation schedule. You must go on vacation. So it's important to me that when you are in the leadership position, you don't forget to mention this to your team. Be proactive, because then you give the team the space and the freedom to feel that it's okay to be vulnerable, if you will.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You have so much great advice, and we've realized that you've started a really impactful online presence lately on YouTube and LinkedIn, and you've been doing all these videos. It's been really great to watch. Can you give us a reasoning on why you decided to start that now, and where did this passion come from?
So there are 4 reasons. One is very bad and very small, and it's COVID-19. And 3 are, I say, all females and very good. And it's you, Massiel, and Amanda, the girl I spoke with. Really, COVID stranded me. I was traveling. I was on a plane 3 to 4 times per week. The airport is about an hour from where I live. So, consider an 8 hours commute to the airport per week, in a way or the other. Going to places like Jakarta, Beijing, where traffic is something else. And, so I figure that COVID gave me back anything between 15 and 20 hours per week, which is plenty enough to still being able to do my work very effectively, and also dedicate time to the online presence. Why did I mention the three of you? Because Amanda here always challenged me that leadership is not visible enough, that we should be more open, right? More transparent. And then I don't know, I saw Massiel on LinkedIn. We connected. I don't even remember, right? I think I connected, and the first thing that she said, you know, she 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 went very hard and at me and said, why are you guys afraid of being online, and why are you guys not sharing more what you do, and me being me, I said, well, now I got two, and then Jamie came also on board and piling up on that, and I said, well, this to me is sounds like a challenge which I cannot let pass, and so the combination of the virus and the three of you really pushed me to do this, and then finally I was in a call with our CEO. I am a part of an ERG, Employment Resource Group for Multiculturalism, hence the faces on my back, right? And basically he gave us a call to action as an employee and say we need to engage more with our employees, and because it's important that we give a sense of belonging. And this, I don't think this applies only to Baker Hughes, to be honest with you. I think if I look at the oil industry in general, certainly there are different companies and we all compete, but at the end of the day, our purpose is very similar, to make sure that energy is available. And I think that I said it at the beginning, I think our reputation is not exactly where it should be. And I'm hoping that by being visible, people will understand that there are humans behind this industry that are trying to do their best, and they are also trying to in a way to make sure that, because oil and gas are not going to go away, everybody knows this, for another 50 years at the very least, to make sure that young talents are attracted to the industry and can come and help us really changing things in the way the public and the industry needs it. So this is the reason why I came.
Yeah, no, I really applaud you. I applaud you to what you're doing, because I know it takes a lot of guts, especially coming from someone at your level. And I remember exactly, we added each other on LinkedIn and you messaged me and said, if you can ask a leader anything you want, what would you ask him? And I will answer you. Like you gave me that carte blanche of ask me whatever you want. And I remember, I think I sent you 3 questions. And one of them was, why are they so afraid of social media? And why aren't you sharing enough as a leader? You have all this experience, all this knowledge. I would share it to the world and show them what a real leader looks like, and use the tools of social media to get your word out and also inspire people to want to become more like you. And at the same time, you get to connect with your employees, because if employees are seeing their C-level or their higher management or even the CEO online showing up every day, that means a lot to me. It means that you're showing up and that you want to share your story with me. So I feel already part of the family even more, right? And the main thing with a lot of leaders, and I'm hoping a lot of them are listening to our podcast, is they're still very afraid to talk, because that's just kind of what it's been for years, right? At a C level or at a higher level, you're kind of like a closed door kind of person, right? While as a lot of people, even now that we've got to meet a lot of CEOs and C-level people, they're awesome and they have great stories and they're relatable. But we always think of the higher ups as no personality, they don't share anything, they're not friendly, which is not true. So I think what's cool with social media is you can really showcase that you are humans and there is a personality behind leaders, So I really think what you're doing is amazing, and I'm hoping to see even more and more people follow your footsteps so that they can step up to the plate and show, their stories like you're doing on LinkedIn.
I I really think they will. And if you look, I've noticed BP CEO has been very active lately on social media. And, at the end of the day, I'm not C-suite to any extent. I'm a glorified middle manager, but the fact is that you can always make the first step. And, as a leader, you hope that somebody will follow in that first step. And I think the industry has changed a lot since I joined. Not because when I joined there was no social media, etc., but because it is more open. You can speak up more freely.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think we are where we are? Do I think we are where people like you expect and demand? No, but every journey starts with a few small steps, and I truly believe that change is an evolution more than a revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Revolution usually end badly with a lot of blood in the streets, and that is never that is never desirable. But the fact that we are talking, the fact that you have your podcast, and the fact that BPCO is more online, that tells me that the tide is turning, and we need to continue doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question on a LinkedIn post that you made, I think last week or at the beginning of the week, where you mentioned Amanda. And I know we've talked about this, kind of how you got Amanda on the team. Can you give us a little, snippet of that?
Yeah. So, I think as a leader, sometimes you need to shuffle the cards a bit, and change people, even if things are going fairly well, because you don't want things to go just fairly well. You want things to improve all the time. So, I asked around, and Amanda's name came up, and I say, okay, let's do an interview. And I think this is a funny story, because I was in Adelaide at the time in Australia for a business trip, and she was vacationing in the Maldives, right? And and so through WhatsApp, I interview her while she was in the Maldives, and we start talking. And I don't think we talk about work much, but as I mentioned in the video, she started asking questions, and my clear impression from the get-go was that she was interviewing me for the job. I was not interviewing her for the job. She was seeing if I was a good fit for her.
Yeah, you worked out in her favor too. She was like, hey, will this work for me if I do work under him type deal?
Correct. And she asked about me around, and I don't know, sometimes there's a chemistry that happen with people, and that certainly happened. And but really, what I look when I go and hire people in general is exactly this. And I think, to our young audience out there, skills, I think that we're focusing on skills too much. Skills, look, I study as a geologist, right? If I thought that my career should have been what I studied and my skill, I would have never done what I've done, right? And it's the same when you go for an interview. The company will give you the skill needed for your job, right? If you're an engineer, what are the odds that you're using that formula that you learned 5 years ago to calculate this and calculate that, or if you're a mathematician and you want to study an MBA, I guarantee you, you know, logarithmic and derivatives, you will not need. And so you need to focus really on what is the value you can bring. And to me, these days, the best value you can bring to a company is your ability to question the status quo. Because when I hear things like, oh, we've always done it like that, you know, then it's when I need somebody like Amanda that says, well, you know, I don't really care. I want to do it differently. Maybe there is a better way. And I guarantee you, there is always a better way to do things. And look, don't take it from me. Take it from you know, the people that came down from the 3-4 million years ago, and look where we are now. You know, talking across a couple of oceans, and if we didn't have people that thought that we could do things better, we would still be roaming the savannah by now, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
I really
I'm sorry, that's my geology paleontology.
No, but I mean, it speaks volumes what you're saying, because it's very true. And that's exactly how I even got into the industry when I met my first manager, Chad Hall, which we barely even talked about oil and gas or what the position really was. We just related on a whole nother level, had a 2-hour conversation, and I knew that this is the guy I wanted to work for. And I mean, I had no engineering background. I had no idea what hydraulics were. I had no idea of anything. I was a marketing major, but that didn't, you know, hold me back. And so it's very refreshing to hear you say the same thing. And that just goes to show you that that's how great leaders are made, and that's how great people are hired.
I agree. I agree with you, Jamie, because he gave you that chance. He didn't care if you didn't fit all the check boxes probably for that interview of like needs to have this and that. And it's just like, I think she's great, and I'm going to follow that intuition. And I know that I can mold her with, you know, with training and all the rest of the stuff and the tools for her to build those skills. And what I really like, and I hope a lot of leaders start to think a little bit more that way, in terms of, yes, people who challenge the status quo are the kind of people we want, because sometimes I've seen the opposite, where if you're always challenging them on like what's being done and you don't agree with it, because that's kind of my personality, is just like Amanda, I challenge everything, and I always fight back to try to think differently. Let's try something different. And it's not always well received. So I think you need the type of right leaders like yourself who sometimes want to listen and say, okay, yeah, let me take this, instead of blocking it.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think as a leader, you do this by asking questions, right? Because you still do need to pay attention the way you communicate change, right? And I personally made the mistake very often to be very passionate about things that were not going well and not going anywhere with that. I've learned that passion is good. You need a lot of that, but to communicate change to people at my level and above, you really need to have a solid data set to support your idea. And I certainly, when I was younger, not that I'm old now, by the way, these are things that I have going with Amanda all the time. You really need to hone in on the data and support your drive to change with data. You also need to find the right timing. This is just same thing as, you know, if you go and ask something to your mom and dad when they are arguing or when they're worried about something, I remember you would not go anywhere. So challenging is good, but as everything in life, needs to be done with the right information and at the right time. And very often, right? And as I said, I cast the first stone. I am guilty sometimes to still do that. And certainly I was guilty of doing that earlier in my career. You just have an idea and say, oh, it's great, let's go,
That is me.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Jamie and I are both guilty of this, because like yourself, we're very passionate people. And I think we're still learning of how to hone it in, but
that's a good thing.
we're like, we need to do this and wow,
Yeah. And I won't even have data for it. I'll just be like, we need to be doing this. Like, this is what we need to be doing. Why aren't we doing this? And they're like, calm down. I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure somebody is thinking about this. But
No,
we're
no,
learning.
sorry, go ahead.
We're learning.
No, but this is a behavior. I'm not trying to stifle or kill. You just need to, it's like the volume. If you listen to, I don't know what I like Bruce Springsteen, but if I listen to Bruce Springsteen too loud, it's just gonna hurt my ear. You just need to dial it down a little bit. It's easy.
That's really great advice. Like, I'm actually going to be using that moving forward. Like, I'm really glad that you shared that with us. To wrap this up here, I would like to end on a question that I know is weighing on a lot of people's minds. And that is, with the changes going on in the world due to COVID and the online buying power, how do you see oil and gas changing to adapt to the new normal?
I see a lot of automation. I see a lot of digitalization. I see a lot of remote operation. These are the three things that will definitely change the industry. And I see it in all the articles that I read. I see in the press release of Baker Hughes and Schlumberger and Halliburton. The trend is clear. There's no mistake. If you can read and you haven't picked it up yet, then your head is in the sand.
Digital is coming. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and by digital, I think the definition is a bit loose sometime yet, but by digital to me means less people on the rig site, more people in front of the screen remotely, less Excel spreadsheet, more platform type integration, more efficiencies. Certainly, making $500,000 per year going on a rig site is not going to happen anymore. And I know that's got a huge impact on people's life, because those were very good, highly paying job that will not be there in 5 to 10 years. You are in the States. I work in the States for 3 years. The Permian, I'm sure you have friends that have been laid off recently.
Yeah.
Statistically impossible that you don't have that. So that's where we're going as an industry. I think also as an industry, we really need to be more mindful of the environment. Certainly, Baker Hughes was the first company coming out with a goal to go to zero emission. I don't think that we need to argue on the reason why our house is on fire. You need to put the fire out, and data clearly show that the house is on fire, and we need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. That's what our customer ask for, right? We as a service company, we work with BP, Shell, Total, etc., and all these companies are engaged, and so we need to be engaged in this discussion. So I think that more job will be created because of that. And I'm also, when I say this, I know that people in the back of their mind, they say, oh, what about jobs? What about less job? What about artificial intelligence and automation having less job? I mean, again, go back in history, and yes, when the first weaving machine came out and the industrial revolution started, people lost their job. But then look at what that brought us to, right? So it's the usual thing that change is difficult, and but change for humankind, if you look at the big picture, change has always been good. Back to I you know I just have this Monty Python clip that you should put in the link somewhere, and there's the guy that was chipping the stone axe, and the guy comes from the Bronze Age and says, look, you can use bronze now, and the guy does not want to give up the stone axe, right? And it will always be like this in our evolution. I don't like to swim against the tide. It's tough and takes a lot of energy. I think you need to embrace change and be more like a surfer and ride that wave.
I love that analogy. Be like a surfer.
No, totally.
I agree. Because you need to, otherwise you're going to be left behind.
Change. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, left behind.
Yeah, and like you said, because I think a lot of people are always worried about, less jobs because of digitalization and all this stuff. But like you said, we've always noticed that when newspapers stopped being printed, they closed down some places, everybody lost their jobs because there was no more print industry. But then now you have all these social media people who now all make money off of online with no print, and they write news articles, and it's just kind of like there is a change and there is job losses, but we're human. There always seems to be some sort of like job creation somewhere else. And if you actually look at a lot of the industries that have shut down because of automation, there's always a work somewhere else that's being created with digitalization. So I don't think we need to be too worried about that. Things always kind of work themselves out. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's such great advice that you've given us. And more than anything, thank you for everything that you do on LinkedIn and your YouTube. What we'll do is we'll put it on the show notes for everybody listening or watching where you can find Enrico. I'm sure he'd love for you to add him, and he's always free to chat if you want to, challenge him. So
yes.
Yeah,
you're gonna get tons of messages.
You're very open online for that. I saw that you're like, please, if you have any questions or whatever, please reach out to me. Enrico is very open to that, and that's what makes him so great as a leader. And just thank you so much for allowing people to reach out to you and to give the advice that you do, because a lot of people don't have mentors, and they can just go straight to your page and literally it feels like your mentor's right there with you along the way. So we really, really appreciate that.
No, thank you very much. And thanks for having me, and thanks for what you do, because I think you're giving a voice to people like me that otherwise would have a very little audience. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.